Welcome to Implausible Nature, home to all things Black Templar. And today we're going to be talking about the summer data slate and points drop for the Black Templars and Space Marines. So as you can see, we do not have Alex here today. It's just going to be myself. Unfortunately, he is tied up this evening, and I think this was something that we needed to get right on board and start talking about because it's kind of an important piece of the puzzle. So, first things first, as you may have known, we don't really have anything in the day slate. There's lots of things that happen to other people, and I'm not really going to talk about those. You can see that amongst the YouTube and other content creators quite a bit. You don't really need to hear it from me because we handle Black Templars and Space Marines in general. So there's nothing in the data slate itself that happened. Unfortunately, that's kind of a downer for us because Space Marines in general are not doing as well as they could. Ultramarines might be the exceptions to the rule. They did make some alterations to them, buffs in fact, but we're not going to talk about those guys. We are the bros in black. So we're going to skip over the data slate itself. Again, unfortunate, but it is what it is. We did get buffs in our points, and let's kind of take a look at those. So we're going to start with the Black Templars themselves, because obviously we're Black Templars players, right? So we have the first one. If you go to the Minotaurium, it is going to be Chaplain Grimaldus here. So there's four models, obviously because he's got the three relics in there. But that is going to be minus 10 points. So he's back down to the 120 points. So I think that makes him a little bit more viable. He's still going to be a little bit overcosted, I think, for what he does, especially since he's basically going to be locked to that Black Tide style list, which might be a little bit more viable with that. So we'll take a look at that here in a second. Next up, we have High Marshal Helbrecht, down 10 points. Now, this one might excite a little bit more people. Obviously, High Marshal Helbrecht enables a lot of damage with the Sword Brethren squad. He does a ton of stuff for us. Obviously, this is going to be a point reduction that we will take every single day because he was way overpointed for what he did, even though he pushes out a ton of damage, right? He is good with basically any unit that the Black Templars really care about. But obviously, the Black Templars are the best. You can put them in with the Crusader squads if you so choose, but Sword Brethren, they like them the most. And getting a 10-point reduction on top of what we'll talk about here in a second will be really good for us going forward. So I kind of touched on it. The Black Tide might be coming back a little bit, maybe. We'll see. So Primaris Crusader squad. So the 10-man size stayed the 150 points, but it went down 10 points for the 20-man squad. So we're at 310 points versus the 320 that we were prior to. So we've talked about this, Alex and I, about numerous times, why we feel that Games Workshop kind of made that 20-man squad a little bit more expensive. And it's kind of game-wide. A lot of different armies had this happen. It's because the more units, or more models rather, and the larger squads benefit from buffs a lot better. It scales better. So that additional size squad basically got taxed a little bit extra. Now we're not going to get taxed quite as much. Before it was an extra 20 points. Now it's only 10 extra points. So that's a lot easier to stomach, rather. So when you're running a bunch of these 20-man squads with a Black Tide, you're going to save yourself between 40 and 50 points over the previous, which that was significant because you were, scout squads, 70 points, different units. You need some support in those Black Tide lists to make it viable to score points, because you can't just rely on those Crusader squads. So now when you have Chaplain Grimaldus and the Primaris Crusader squads. They're going to be more in line to the list that we saw about a year ago that were actually starting to win some tournaments. So it's still going to be a little bit more expensive than they were obviously before because they were 140 points then, so they were 280. So they're still paying about 30 more points for that 20-man squad each. So it's still a bit more than what we did before. But the discount does help a little bit. Now, do I think it's going to be completely viable? Or are we going to see 100 Crusader squads or 100 Crusader on the board? I don't think so. I think we may start to see something like 80 and some support, and that might be some viable in some competitive environments. But it will be remains to be seen. There's not a ton of people out there that really have that many Crusader squads out there that they could put them on the board and test it out to see if we can get that many. And that it does take a certain style of player to be able to run a horde list and be able to move efficiently, get all the dice rolls done, and be able to get a game in a tournament situation between whether it's a 2.5 hour game or 2 hour and 45 minutes. Those kind of the standard, especially when they're being clocked. So there's a lot of models that need to be moved, a lot of strategy, and if you lose one of these units to something that's going to be a little bit more deadly to us with high AP, especially damage 2, that's going to be a big swing. But do I think it's possible that they might see a comeback? I think it's possible. So something to kind of be looking at. A little bit excited to see what some people have come up with and are able to do, especially with the Grimaldus being discounted there. Now, this is the big one that everyone's really kind of excited about. We're back down to the 140 points per 5-man Primaris Sword Brethren. Awesome. They were overcosted at 150 points, I thought. They still did a ton of damage, but they relied on buffing characters to do a ton of damage. That's really what you take them for. You take them for their damage potential added on to a character and then stacking those buffs together to kill things. We have the High Marshal Helbrecht bomb with a Castellan or a Lieutenant to really, really stack on buffs, especially if you're an accept any challenge. So that's a really good combo. But now you also have the 10 models that are discounted 30 points. So not only do we have to only pay 140 points for 5, we pay 270 for 10. So this might, maybe allow us to be able to take that 10-man Helbrecht bomb. It's still pretty expensive. You're looking at like $455, I think it is, for that squad. And maybe it's something you can validate now. Is it way overkill? Yes, it very much is. But because of that size, you can take maybe Tannhauser Bone on your Lieutenant. If you want to run in Accept Any Challenge, you can do that. You have the bodies to absorb some hits afterwards because they don't have invulnerable saves. They're going to evaporate. So if you're not in your standard Feel No Pain vow, that might be more popular for you. You can go a little bit more damage and use the bodies to really absorb some of that. Because right now, they're cheaper than a Crusader Squad, ironically. But they do a ton of damage. So this is something that I'm excited about. Getting them back down to the 140, I think, is much more appropriate for what they do. 135 would have been kind of a sweet spot for me, but I'm not going to complain about going down to 140. These are in every one of my lists, at least 2 squads. The 5-man, I think they are indispensable. You can even go with High Marshal Helbrecht on that with that discount, the 20-point discount, and throw them in an Impulsor, or you could do the Land Raider Redeemer option for you as well. Lots of options that are pretty important for us. I think this is a unit that we still kind of have to really rely on for some of these damages. I think you need to still put them in a transport. You don't want to walk them. I think there's maybe some play in something like Gladius for a walking 10-man unit for 270. But at that point, you really don't want to put a ton of points into them because it's going to be really susceptible for damage. But Black Templars, welcome changes to get discounted points. But my thoughts on it. When I pulled up my lists, I was seeing between 40 and 50 point reduction. I don't think it's going to be enough to really impact our games. Now, we haven't talked about the Space Marine discounts, and we can certainly do that here in a second. But Black Templars only, I think we need a little bit more, whether it be characters, Primaris, Crusader squads, and maybe even a little bit more off of our Sword Brethren to really push us over the edge and get us into that Goldilocks zone. Because I think right now we're really struggling, um, especially with the points that we had. Um, Gaining 40 to 50 points is not going to be enough to really add much to your list. That you're maybe going to get an enhancement that you weren't able to pay for, maybe upgrade a unit, or maybe scouts to maybe reavers instead. Otherwise, you're not going to really be able to do much with those extra points. We needed 20 or 30 more points so that we could get an extra squad, be able to play the objective game a little bit better, or maybe upgrade one of your weaker close combat units into something a little bit better, or get another character into that list. So I think right now, at least just looking at the Black Templars units, I think it's maybe not quite enough to really get us pushed in. It'll be closer, but not quite there. You may have noticed, because we didn't do anything in the data slate. We don't have anything in the data slate because we got a supplement that's going to be dropping in the next couple of months. I'll be very surprised if we don't see a response from, or I'm sorry, a preview from Games Workshop in the next couple of weeks. At the really, the earliest that'll be next couple of weeks, but no later than a month, I would say they're going to be dropping information about that. I would guess that by the end of the July, we are going to be seeing our supplement, and we'll have a fresh spanking new unit. So they're not going to drop data slate information out for that, especially when we have a supplement coming. It's just going to be a waste of time. They're going to be replacing the rules anyway. All right, so that's the Black Templars. Let's go to our Codex Space Marine. So first one, big one, Aggressor Squad, 3-man squad. It's down 20 points to 100 points. 6-man squad, down another 20 points to 220. So again, just like the Primaris Crusader squad, there's a tax for the larger squad because they accept buffs better. So it scales better the more guys that are in there. So obviously they're going to be a little bit more expensive. That's something of a recurring theme for a lot of units that are powerful, like the aggressors. However, with that being said, aggressors are now back into a point level that are acceptable to take them again. They were just way too expensive after they got nerfed the last time around. Now they're back into the usability option. In Righteous Crusaders, I don't think they have a ton of play unless you're going with the captain in Gravis armor, maybe with Tannhausers, and throw on Biologus. Then you can get some stacked buffs in there and go accept any challenge. That way you can get lethal hits on their guns, as well as getting the accept any challenge and lethal in close combat when they get there. So then you also have two characters, well, really one, to really kind of push through some damage in the captain, and you could throw on something like Crusader's Wrath to really kind of buff them. So I think this is an option for you in Righteous Crusaders. Excuse me. You could also do something like putting them into Gladius for those that still use it for the ability to advance charge. So I think that's a good take there. Captain with the jump pack got dropped 10 points. That's a welcome change, especially for those that are using the jump intercessors, assault intercessors. So those will be a good take for you. Captain with jump pack is a good take, I think, in a lot of lists with that. Heavy Intercessor Squad down 10 points. So these are even more cost effective now. So 100 points and 200 points. So I still think they have some viability in the really durable lists, especially if you want to plant them on an objective. They're very difficult to kill. They did get buffed, so they do some damage now versus what they were previously in the last data slate. So we know that they do 2 damage. So they are a good take. I think the 100 points is a good spot for them. Hellblasters. These things are scary at 110 points. I know the 115 points was a pretty good price for them before, but they're very scary now. Honestly, Hellblasters are an annoying unit to have to deal with. Obviously, they were really scary when you put in Gladius and you got the Firestorm and all those different buffs on them to be able to do that. They aren't quite as scary, but they're still annoying to have to deal with because they do have the chance of firing on a death, especially if you MSU them. They still kill Marines very well without buffs. That's something that I would consider putting in any Righteous Crusaders list that you have for some mech killing ability. Anytime that you can kill Marines is a good take without having to get in close combat, without extra buffs or things that you would need to take a different detachment for. This allows us to get some shooting in Righteous Crusaders without having to invest anything into it, well, whether it be enhancements or um, uh, CP usage, which obviously Righteous Crusader does not have anything for. So, Marnie's Caligar obviously got a minus, but we're not talking about him because we are not Ultramarines. Neither do we really care about Gilliman for obvious reasons. And then finally, that is coming to the Vanguard Veteran Squad with jump packs. So we have not been very high on these guys for quite a long time, but 95 points, I think we've talked about a little bit of a combo for these guys. 95 points for 5 is a reasonable price for what you can do with these. So consider this. You can take a Chaplain in jump pack and either 5 or 10 man Vanguard Veteran Squad. So the Vanguard Veteran unit has 4 attacks, strength 5, hits on 3s, 1 AP, and 1 damage. Not great, right? Chainswords almost hit as hard. So, but what you can do in Righteous Crusaders especially is if you start to stack buffs on them. I mentioned the Chaplain with the jump pack because he gives you the +1 to wound in close combat. So they already have a strength 5, so that's going to be a nice break point against a lot of different Marines, obviously. The more tough things are going to be a little bit harder. So what you can do is if you're standard Marines, which is a lot of your opponents, or better, you're hitting on, they're wounding on 3s anyway. Getting that extra +1 is going to be more beneficial than, say, a captain would, where that's going to get the extra strength. So strength 6 is going to be less important than the +1. So you'll be hitting on wounding on 2s rather with that. Now, the Vanguard veterans also, when they charge into combat, mind you, they have to charge into combat, they get lethal hits. So you don't have to tech into a vow that you don't want to. So you can go into accept any challenge if you so choose. So that's going to give you sustains 1, lethal hits on the charge, strength 5. You're also going to be wounding on 2s against a good chunk of thing, anything 4 or less for toughness. And if you have the CP, you can also use Crusader's Wrath to increase your CP or your AP, forgive me, to -2. Now -2 is not great, but it's a lot better than -1, and that means you're almost killing. It's like 9.6 Marines that you're going to kill on the charge with a 10-man squad. So that's a lot of guys. Now you can consider them an alternative, I think, now to the jump pack intercessors who have the mortal wounds that you can play with. But what the Vanguard veterans have going for them is A, they can get access to lethal hits, so they can utilize that for tougher things if they need to. They also have the ability to take storm shields, so they have the durability that you might need. Now, do I think you need to go full 10-man squads with the storm shield? No, I don't think so. Maybe like 4 or 5, something like that you can do to get some durability, to put some of those high AP shots into it if you need to, because obviously cover is still a thing for you. Um, but the other thing that is not really readily talked about on that is the ability to take specialized pistols with these guys. So, in addition to your storm shields that you're taking, let's say you go with 5, you can take like 5 grab pistols or 5 plasma pistols to be able to give yourself some extra killing ability coming in. I would say probably the grab pistol might be my go-to choice personally, because this will give you the ability to go into vehicles at range. So you're going to be able to give that the anti vehicle 2+ on that. So that'll bypass the fact that it only has a -1, but it'll get 2 damage. You're going to plink a few damage onto a vehicle, charge in there if you need lethal hits there, maybe kill off something that may not otherwise have been damaged. And then you don't have to worry about that plasma. But if you want to be able to take out some more durable, like highly armored thing, plasma is also an option. We take a lot of plasma on our sergeants, so this might be another place where you do that as well. Obviously, the more plasma you take, the more chance you have to getting hazardous on those needed rolls. So I think there is play with Vanguard. But you can also take that captain if you want to get that free Crusader's Wrath on that if you don't have another captain in your list, so you're not doubling up anywhere. If you need a Fervent Acclamation or Crusader's Wrath elsewhere in your list. But if you have that CP every turn, this would be a good place to put them. I think the Vanguard veterans are worth checking out. So that's something that's uncommonly used, except for like maybe Blood Angels and things like this. But you get a fast unit that's semi-durable. You don't have to be in your feel no pain vow to be able to do that, but if you want to, you certainly can. Um, yeah, I think they're something that's worthwhile. So those are the points changes in the list. Do I think are a good take for us? Do I think we benefit from this? Yeah, I do. I think we do. I just don't think it's enough to really get us to the higher end 40 percentage. I think we're gonna be solidly 45 to 47. I think we will start winning more until someone unlocks maybe that Black Tide list that might be skew that people are going to have to worry about and build towards. Otherwise, the MSU list is still probably best, whether it be Gladius or Righteous Crusaders. I do think it's worth looking into those aggressors and Vanguard vets again. So take a look at those. Those might be something that's be an option for you, rather as an alternative to the jump pack assault intercessors in the case of the Vanguard veterans, or having a durable shooting unit for you in Righteous Crusaders or Gladius in the case of the aggressors. So not a ton for us in this time around, a little bit more than the last one, which is a positive. But I think between the points decreases, I think we should see some additional wins. I like it. I'm not going to turn down some point discounts. So it'll give us the ability with some tweaking to upgrade some of our units whether it be turning a scout unit into a reaver unit, or maybe taking an enhancement that you were not able to take previously, or getting an extra character if you play around with some points. So I think that might be something that will help us out a little bit, but overall, I think it may not be quite enough as far as points. But with that being said, we're gonna get a supplement really soon. So I understand that Games Workshop didn't want to do too much in the way of throwing points increases, decreases around because they're just going to be overrode anyway, and it didn't really matter. But in the near term, the next couple months, we got some points discounts, we got buffs that we could play around and make it a little bit more enjoyable for us. So other than that, I want to thank all of our Patreons. Thank you for shopping with us. I love having you guys support us and talking to you guys on the Discord. We do have our Discord. You can find that in the bottom of the description here. Thanks for joining us, making us a very active community. We love reading and talking with y'all. Um, Even though sometimes I'm not as active talking, I love reading your conversations. Very active community. And thanks for supporting us in general, Alex and I really appreciate it. We couldn't do this, guys, without you. So, with that being said, I will wish you a great day, and we'll see some more of those videos out to you shortly.